There's nothing wrong with being atypical, but
Mhm.
we still have those parents out there that are like, my child is perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect child. Look, at the end of the day, we all need accommodations in the workplace.
Mhm.
Every single one of us.
You're listening to episode 56 of the Happy Space podcast. Today, we're looking at just what's keeping leaders from being as inclusive as they can be with organizational disruptor, Dr. Lauran Star. Hi, I'm Clare Kumar, your proudly neuroatypical host, exploring the intersection of productivity and inclusivity. I believe that everyone ought to be able to make their richest contribution, but too often people are excluded from spaces, cultures, and experiences. We can do better. I hope that you find inspiration and encouragement in these conversations, for everyone deserves a happy space. I've been on the lookout for leading voices in the DEI space, especially now that DEI efforts are really under threat. After ramping up efforts in 2020, organizations like Google, Meta, John Deere, and Molson Coors have cut budgets and removed DEI-specific initiatives. In this episode, I talk with Dr. Lauran Star, who calls herself an organizational disruptor and psychologist. You can count on Dr. Star for new data-driven insights as she incorporates the latest research. Dr. Star was a trauma medic in the U.S. Army before studying industrial organizational psychology and receiving her PhD. Today, she combines her skills and diagnoses organizational health crises, offering straight talk on the unmeasured costs of not being inclusive and inexpensive practical strategies that can be easily deployed. We explore what's holding leaders back from not only doing the right thing, but making better business decisions. It can be as simple as offering to print on blue paper. Hear more about this and enjoy this conversation with Dr. Lauran Star. She's one of my Speak Up sisters. Lauran Star, I am beyond delighted to have you on the Happy Space podcast. Welcome.
My pleasure to be here. I'm so excited.
Oh, yeah. Ever since I came across you, learned about you, and then spoke to you, I have been looking forward to this moment where listeners, you're in for a treat because I have with me today an organizational disruptor. She's a speak up sister. She is someone who I identify with very strongly. And we're going to have a real honest conversation here about the landscape that we're in and the work that both Lorena here and I feel like we're here to do. And I hope that if you're listening and you feel like an organization needs to hear this message, pass it on. Because I know in my life, I've been told, you speak what I'm thinking, but I'm not comfortable saying, or I haven't brought myself to be able to say it yet. So, Lauran, as a fellow truth teller, maybe we can start by telling us a little bit about how you came to become an organizational disruptor.
I think I've always been a disruptor. I just didn't realize it had a title. When I look at my history, so I'm a veteran, we talked about that. I served in the United States Armed Forces in the Army as a trauma medic. And it's not surprising that I went medical corps because it really doesn't matter what your rank is, you do what I tell you. Right. So that disruptorness, like I really wrapped my arms around that at a very young age. Um, I see the world differently. And I'm dyslexic. And being dyslexic, I do. I see the world very differently. There's no glasses on when I look at organizations or where people are struggling. And embracing that disruptor side of me where I'm so focused on evidence and truth and fact versus rhetoric and garbage and falsity.
Uh-huh.
How can I not be a disruptor?
Yeah. I remember telling my kids, you can't serve me up bullshit. So don't even try. I don't
Amen.
tolerate. And I think in my yearbook, I understand it more now. Claire with that look. How could I refuse? It's like I am
Mhm.
demanding fact. In fact, I just completed this yesterday. This is my hidden disability sunflower card. And
Oh.
this is something you can wear if you want to say I have a hidden
Mhm.
disability, non-visible challenge, non-apparent challenge. And so I have MS and I'm autistic, which has its sensory challenges, right? But I was thinking any special assistance needs, like space to rest, physical distancing space. And then I
Mhm.
wrote down logic
Amen.
because I
Critical
realize,
thinking, logic. Yeah.
right? Because I'm calling people out now if what they tell me does not make sense. And I'm calling, as you told me last night, I didn't watch the national presidential debate, but you were saying Kamala Harris said bullshit without the mic picking it up.
Without the
And so
mic.
yeah, so I think she's a speak up sister too.
I think she is a speak up sister. I was like, I mean, I may not agree with all of her political ideology,
Mhm.
but any woman that can stand there in their own autonomy and their own authority and interrupt a bully
Yeah.
like she did with Pence, I'm speaking
Yes.
to shut it down, right? I'm going to gravitate towards that strong woman, and that's what she is. Whether you like her or not, she is a strong woman. If you
Mhm.
don't like her, you might want to you might want to question yourself. Is it her or is it that strong woman that you're in challenge with?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think we all need to have some accountability, and we all need to be authentic. We all,
Yeah.
right? We
Yeah.
all need to be authentic. I'm a disruptor. I thrive in disruption. And anyone that knows me from my years in corporations, they would always say, don't let Lauran get bored. Because when she gets bored, there's going to be trouble. She's going to start disrupting. She'll disrupt the training class. She'll disrupt. I was at a wine tasting last night. I got bored. And my girlfriend looked at me and she went, oh boy. I'm like, yep, I have a question. And right, that disruptor just can't, I just can't help it. When I
Uh-huh.
see information that's incorrect, um,
Yes.
I'm going to jump on it.
Yeah. My friend Robbie Samuels hosts a wonderful CEO discussion and with multiple CEOs on the call. And he invites coaches to be a
Mhm.
fly on the wall. And that fly on the wall language came after I think I was in one of the meetings and I was very active in the chat asking challenging questions of the CEOs. And I said, do I need to sit on my hands? Because I cannot be guaranteed to sit on my hands. I can't. So I challenged the
Hmm.
CEO of one very large company, who's a white male CEO, who was talking about privilege that he was blind to having, and I just, I was incensed by it.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
raised a question twice in the chat. So then they finally had to answer because it was embarrassing to or ignore it twice. And so,
Sure.
yeah, I was, the topic was interesting because they were talking about, first of all, the premise that, I want hustle and I want grind. And that was the beginning of it. And we need productivity and performance. And later on, you heard two female CEOs talk about how in their family, there had been mental health needs
Hmm.
surface and they needed to have compassion. And my question was, rationalize hustle and grind and mental health and taking care of the two together? How do you
Sure.
rationalize this? And there was an interesting discussion that came where
Oh, I'm
values and
sure.
beliefs were totally outed, right? Anyway, I
Hmm.
want to come back to you and this organizational disruptor title. What does
Yes.
that mean in what you're doing today in your professional life?
In my professional life, so I do work for an organization where I head up their diversity, equity, and inclusion program.
Mhm.
I am their chief disruptor. Um, but I also do a bit of consulting. So, being dyslexic,
Yeah.
I see organizations differently. And being dyslexic is one of my superpowers because I have incredible, if I say so myself, and my stock portfolio agrees with me. I have incredible organizational awareness.
Mm.
It's very easy for me to go into an organization and I can identify those problems almost immediately.
Mhm.
We're having a hard time with retention. Well, retention's really not your problem. That's your symptom. That's your pain point.
Right.
It's actually, it could be leadership, it could be branding, it could be, right? There's multiple factions. It could be management, team development, or lack thereof development. There are
You're
other, right?
diagnosing. You're the trauma
Yes,
medic now for organizations.
I'm the
Looking at
trauma medic. Oh, I
symptoms.
love that. I'm the trauma medic now for organizations. I am very good at diagnostics um,
Yes.
because I'm dyslexic, because I read what's pertinent and not what's bullshit. Like I can just see it. I've learned how to compensate for my dyslexia, and this is one of my compensation skills, and it
Love it.
works.
Tell listeners a little bit more because we haven't talked about much about dyslexia itself on the show. It's one of the neurodivergent ways of being. Just give a
Mhm.
little bit about that if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I don't read the way everyone reads, and dyslexia is a funny neurodivergency in that some might not be able to read numbers.
Mhm.
Some might not be able to read horizontally. Some may not be able to read vertically. For me, anything that's on a white screen, I cannot read. And it's really challenging because the letters move.
Yes. Yeah.
And, you know, a, gosh, going back in my history and uncovering dyslexia, there was a time when I was in third grade, I was diagnosed as mentally retarded. In the state of Massachusetts, we all had to take IQ tests. It was mandatory in the state. And I scored a 67.
Mhm.
And that was third grade. And I, we uh, they called my mother and they were like, "Oh my God, your daughter's mentally retarded." That's right. She scored a 67. She's mentally retarded. We're pulling her out of the mainstream classrooms. This is
Mhm.
when we isolated students with special needs. We're putting her in the special needs room. And I
Mhm.
giggle at that because it was just like a playroom. Um, my mother's response to that was to cut all my hair off because she was concerned that having a mentally retarded daughter, she wanted to make sure that I could do my hair with no problem. Right. This we're going back to the 70s. This is how we looked at it. It really wasn't until and like in high school, I learned to compensate through theater. Theater was my playground. And, when I'd write my papers in high school, I was a C student at
Mhm.
best.
Mhm.
But nobody sat back and said, "Oh, maybe." It wasn't until really college, and then the military showed me how to overcompensate that by error. I was diagnosed with dyslexia by my freshman English teacher in college. She noticed at that point we were typing everything and everything. You just couldn't read my paper,
Mhm.
nor could I. So that's the other, right? Like I
Yeah.
may be typing something, but I have no idea what it says.
Yeah.
Um, and from there, I went into the military, and I had to take the ASVAB, which is an aptitude exam. And if you can imagine, a girl who believes she might be retarded obviously has a learning disability.
Mhm.
Now we've got a name for it, dyslexia.
Mhm.
I need to pay for college. I was told to go and join the military for life experience. And then sitting in the ASVAB, and they pass out these the flyers, the booklets, and it was on blue paper. And guess what? I could read it. Like I could read it. I could do the math. I could do right. And after it's not hard math. It's how quickly can
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
think around the problems. I
Wow.
scored very, very high, and that's why I ended up as a trauma medic. I scored very, very high. But for me, it was like, holy moly, I'm not retarded.
Wow.
Like I,
Wow.
yeah, but I built up in all those years ways to get around it, right? Ways to
Yeah.
negotiate what was holding me back.
That must have been a profound moment.
Oh my gosh, it was, I, it was amazing. It really was. After you take the ASVAB, you go home and then they call you back into your military processing station. And
Mhm.
from there, they go over the jobs that you're qualified for. And I'm like, I'm going to be cleaning latrines. Maybe I'll be cooking. Like, I'm going to be like at the bottom rung. They can't even have me as a mechanic. And they were like, you blew the ASVAB out of the water. So you can do whatever you want. And I remember sitting there going, I can do whatever I want. They were like, yeah, you want to go nuclear? We can send you nuclear. And I was like, oh my, could you see me doing nuclear? Oh my, no, no, no. But from there, I had an inclination towards healthcare
Yeah.
already. And they were like, you know what? We think the job for you would be trauma medic. We think that you would really thrive there. And we don't have that many, women as
Right.
trauma medics.
Right.
You don't have that many. Okay, so when I went to medical training in San Antonio, Fort Sam Houston, Texas, I was one of the first females to
Wow.
go through trauma medic training
Wow.
because I'm a disruptor. I mean, right when they said, hey,
Thanks to the blue
yeah,
paper. I wonder,
thanks all to the blue paper. If
when
it
did
was
you
in
see
white
blue?
paper, I don't know.
When did you see blue paper next? I mean, it seems like that was the universe conspiring in you to have you
Yeah,
end up where you needed to be without that blue paper.
without that blue paper. And
Wow.
I don't know why it worked like I do now, but
Yeah.
at that time I was just like, huh. And then when I went through medical training, everything was on green paper, like that light green.
Oh,
And, I struggled. Don't get me wrong. I had to learn how to read at the ripe age of 20. Think
wow.
about that. Like I had to learn how to
Wow.
read
Yeah.
what was really in front of me. I knew CAT made, spelled cat. I mean, I took all that information in, but I had never put it into practice.
Right. Your brain hadn't wired the recognition to put
I
symbols to the word, right? You had to make that rewiring need to happen.
I had to do, I had to do that that rewiring of the brain.
Mhm.
But yeah, and it was right. That was like the light went off. I went, oh, green and blue paper make me brilliant.
So
And
tell us a little bit about what you know about that now, and then let's connect that to the conversation about, oh, workplace accommodations, medical model, how simple it could be. Tell us, let's start with paper and why the wavelength from blue light or green
that's it.
paper. What's happening with that?
It's
Hey, Happy Space listeners! If you're looking to boost your team's performance, look no further. As a productivity expert and inclusivity advocate, I love showing leaders how inclusivity is the key ingredient in team performance. We travel beyond lip service and explore helping everyone truly bring their best selves to work. Ready to see your team soar? Visit clarekumar.com and book a discovery call today.
it's the wavelength. It stops the letters from moving. It allows the letters. My brain focuses not on the letters, but the color of the paper, which allows the letters into alignment for me.
Yes.
Hmm. I have my daughter, so I have three children. I have twin daughters. All three of my kids are in STEM,
Yep.
science, engineering. They're all engineering, pre-med kids, and they're all in college. But my daughter Michelina
Mhm.
has dyslexia,
Uh-huh.
and I am so thankful I have dyslexia because
Mm.
when the first grade teacher said, we think she has ADHD, I was like, you know what? Till you get your PhD in neuroscience, no.
Mhm.
When she's in fourth grade, we will test her for dyslexia. I
Mhm.
have dyslexia. What she is doing right now is what I was doing.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
more than like, and you know what? Suck it up. You need to accommodate for that. I'm huge
Suck
into
it up.
accommodate.
Not your daughter.
Not my
Who
daughter.
needs to suck it up
No.
exactly? Who needs to suck
I'm
it
like,
up, Lauren?
that's right. I'm like, I've got the law on my side here. You need to suck it up. And I remember saying to the teacher, and if you recommend medication one more time,
Mm.
I am going to come after this school. I will file a lawsuit because
Mhm.
as a teacher, and I love teachers, don't get me wrong, I hold them in very high esteem, but
Mhm.
they are not they're not to diagnose children.
Mm-hmm.
They're to teach children.
Mm-hmm.
And they are to teach every child in that classroom to the best
Mm-hmm.
of their ability.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one
And
of the gaps,
good.
really, whether it be at work or whether it be in the education system, is a fuller understanding of the challenges, the barriers, and the easy things that can be done, right?
And the easy things that can be done, like blue paper.
Mm-hmm.
Or a right, and we were very fortunate where we are, where I reside in New Hampshire. The reading teacher, Mary Lou Wilson, who I just absolutely adore, she was like, "Oh yeah, like Lauran, your daughter appears to have dyslexia. I'm going to give her a blue ruler that she can use in the classroom. Let's see if that helps." And then she'd go home and she'd do research and she'd come back. And once Lena was diagnosed, she has the left eye convergence dyslexia, same as me. She was like, "Oh my gosh, I did all this research on this. Let's try this. Let's try that. Let's strengthen this." Now I had a partner in crime that was, focused on my daughter. And today she's a 4.0 student in chemical engineering.
Hello.
Um, she has
Wow.
students.
Wow. 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 Wow.
Yes.
Right. So my
Yeah.
website says help stop the unintentional marginalization of human potential. That's
Hmm.
this is exactly what I'm talking about.
This is it. I mean, through junior high and high school, right? I went after her medical accommodation for dyslexia. I had to fight that she did not write out her math problems because the minute
Oh,
she puts, just like me, pen to paper to write out a math problem, it gets lost.
yes.
So Michelina will take an exam and she just looks at it and she's calculating the
Yeah.
results.
Yeah.
And then she just writes down the answer. So when she
Show your
then
work was not
the show your
this.
work's not an option for her.
Right. Yeah.
And trust me, that was a hill. That
Yeah.
was a hill. And I'm like, I will die on this flipping hill.
Yeah.
I and then, going to the university where she goes to a Worcester Polytechnical Institute here in Massachusetts, very high thought of for STEM. And when I said to them, so the show your work won't work for her, she has dyslexia, their response was, we don't worry about that. We're good. If she can't
Wow.
show the work, we've got the accommodation. That's fine. Oh,
Wow.
okay. Seriously? I mean, she's had some bumps along the way where some of her professors in humanities didn't understand what dyslexia was. But her chemical
Yeah.
engineering professors really, and
Wow.
they love her
Yeah.
because she just gets it. She gets it because she's not the normal thinker, right?
Right.
It's kind of like me with my organizational awareness. She has that in chemistry. I have it in organizations.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and she's thriving. And I will say that my biggest, proudest moment, I guess, with my daughter, or where I was like, yeah, we did it. She has no problem telling you, I'm dyslexic. If you have a problem with it, that's your problem.
Mm-hmm.
She
There
owns
is, do
it.
you not sense there's a big evolution between the generations now? The younger
Yes.
people are open to it, proud of it, talking about it. I don't see the same
Mhm.
thing in corporations. What I'm sensing, and I'd love your thoughts on this. I'm sensing that leaders are becoming advocates in this space because their children are being diagnosed. And so they're
Mhm.
advocating for change in the workplace, but I don't see leaders coming out and saying, I
Yeah.
am dealing with this and I've been dealing with this for my entire career and identifying as a leader in this space. What are you noticing?
Yeah. So I think from what I see leaders slash parents falling into two camps.
Mm-hmm.
They either see themselves in their child,
Yeah.
like, oh, I struggled like that too. And they do more research and then they empower their child.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go into the workforce and they are my leaders, my employees that step up and say, hey, just so you know, I have ADHD.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then I see the complete polar opposite, where I have these parents that then become leaders in organizations that not my child, not
Uh-huh.
my child,
Mm-hmm.
not my child. I just had a conversation with this incredibly talented employee, and she was explaining to me she just recently took her nephew in, and it is clear as day this child has impulse control disorder. It is clear as day. I'm a psychologist. I can diagnose.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I'm like, and so she's telling me where she's struggling. And I said, this, I said, here are some solutions for you. This
Mm-hmm.
child obviously has impulse control disorder. Here's where you can take them to have them evaluated. Here's where you can take. I'm not doing that. There's nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, well, wait a minute. There's nothing wrong with him, but yet he was thrown out of summer camp for like randomly biting children when he got frustrated.
Yeah.
That's not typical. That's atypical.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with being atypical.
Mm-hmm.
But we still have those parents out there that are like, my child is perfect. When
Yeah.
there is no such thing as a perfect child.
Mm-hmm.
Look, at the end of the day, we all need accommodations in the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And those that are sitting back saying, I don't need those accommodations, or it's too much work. I was on a conference call yesterday. It's too much work to treat
Yeah.
everyone like
Yeah.
they need an accommodation. And I was like, I'm sorry, are you a manager or are you an independent contributor? Because if you're a manager or leader,
Mm.
one of your jobs is to look after your people. If you treat every employee as if they have an accommodation, the research shows that you will see productivity increase twofold. You will also see that employee, because you ask, right? Employees don't know you care until you show you care.
Correct. Yeah.
That's a great example there.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I do think we're starting to see that shift where more and more people are talking about their disability. More and more people are sharing the neurodivergence.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly encourage it, with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be talking about this. We need to destigmatize. We absolutely need to destigmatize
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, from a business lens, we don't have enough employees to fill the jobs if we don't destigmatize disabilities, if we don't recruit those with disabilities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to have, job roles that are going to remain open. And that's not good for anyone. Imagine the company that I'm with right now, if they said, oh, you have a disability, we're not going to hire you. I am very transparent about it. I bring it up in the first interview
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a disruptor. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, so I have a disability. I am dyslexic. I check the box in the application.
Mm-hmm.
Have you had or do you currently have? Yes,
Yeah.
I check that box.
Yeah.
I have multiple disabilities thanks to the military, right? I play hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I sit back and I go, oh, well, yeah, I have a disability. I like everything you send over to me from a document standpoint
Mm-hmm.
needs to be on blue or green paper, or email it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a blue filter on my computer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if you send me white paper, you're not getting it, goes right in my garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine if the company said, we're not going to do that? Well, if the organization isn't going to, then it's their loss. They don't deserve to
Yeah.
have working for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sensing there's a shift in people saying I deserve to be considered.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's I deserve to be considered. I think it's more of consider me. Like,
Yeah,
I
but it
think,
comes from self-worth.
yeah,
That's why I'm
it does
saying I
come
deserve
from
it. You
self-worth.
have
Yeah.
to have self-worth to be able to say that. If
Mm-hmm.
you're someone with low self-esteem, you're like, would you mind considering me?
That
It's
is
not
true. That is
consider me.
true.
It's people are recognizing, and I'm saying this because of my work with the Hidden Disabilities Sunflower Program, where some
Mhm.
of our member companies have come to the program because their employees have said, hey, this is really something great. And at the same time, someone from the public has said, do you know about this? I would love you to have this because I want you to treat me the way I deserve to be treated. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
something, it's simmering and it's rising up, and once it's rising, it doesn't go back down. This.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it is rising, although right, I've got to be the devil in the deep sea here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I went to the Society of Human Resource. Yeah, I'm going to call them out because I'm a disruptor.
Charm.
But I went to SHRM, Society of Human Resource Managers. I went to their inclusion conference last year.
I was there virtually because I had COVID.
Well, you didn't mix anything. It sucked. Uh, but
Oh.
on that note,
Hmm.
they had not, it's an inclusion conference.
Yeah.
Like the app that they sent us, I was like, holy crap, I'm going to have a stroke just looking at this. Like it doesn't matter if you're, right, if you've got seizure disorder, if you have ADHD, like the app was ridiculous. So
Uh-huh.
I'd asked them, can I get a paper version
Yeah.
of the agenda?
Oh.
And they were like, we don't have that. We don't have
Yeah.
a paper version. Oh, we have this huge Excel file if you want to make a photocopy. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like I put in there I was dyslexic. I told you I needed an accommodation,
Hmm.
and you still don't have anything for it. Like I put it right in there, like need blue paper, green paper. I even brought my own paper just in case.
I bet. Yeah.
Because if they're right, maybe they're going to print it on, right? I can give me
Something to
the
dance with.
flyer.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't give out flyers. We're going to meet.
Paperless. I know.
So
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, unfortunately, I can't read the app
Yeah.
and I can't read your Excel spreadsheet. Too many lines, too many boxes.
Yeah.
So what do you have for me being dyslexic? And they were like, nothing. I was like, well, I guess inclusion doesn't mean shit to you.
They
And
hadn't
I
thought they
ran
hadn't
to them
thought
ranted
about
about
this.
that.
They hadn't thought about this particular challenge, right?
It's an inclusion conference.
I
How do
know.
you
And
know
and
about
tell
that?
me, with dyslexia, it's not a tiny thing. What's the percentage of people with dyslexia?
I think the percentage right now is like 27% of the neurodivergent population
Right. Right.
because we have better diagnostics and people are talking about it.
Yes.
And and
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's not surprising that those that have come out with dyslexia are brilliant, like Steve Jobs and right, like
Richard
Einstein
Branson, I
was
think too.
dyslexic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not surprising, right? Because we see
Yes.
the world differently. We all have superpowers, every single one of us.
Yeah.
But you have to learn how to cultivate it. And
Yeah.
when you have a neurodivergency, you're forced to cultivate it. That's the
Yes.
only right. The difference between
Yes.
someone who's non-neurodivergent and someone who is if you're neurodivergent, you're forced to cultivate that or you miss out
That's right.
versus someone who doesn't have a neurodivergency,
Hmm.
they don't miss out.
Hmm.
So they don't cultivate
Well, I say we're
any.
designed out. You're
Yeah.
designed out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the effort that it takes to participate can lead to burnout. So, so
Yeah.
that's the kind of way I look at it. When the world's not designed to make us comfortable and respect the level of energy and attention that we have and our
Mhm.
time even, right? Because we have to spend longer, we have to put more energy in, all of that, and
Absolutely.
greater attention, all of that. It's taxing already. And now we have to advocate, educate, train, all of this piece as well, which becomes
Mhm.
it's an extra level ask that
It's
almost
yeah.
no one is aware of.
Well, nobody's right. Very few people are talking about it. However, the bright side is we have this thing called artificial intelligence, game changer for anyone that's neurodiverse. Game changer.
Say more.
But are they aware of it? Yes. So, right, using artificial intelligence, I can now create documents in minutes and then
Mm.
throw it through my translator, my narration translator,
Yeah.
and make adjustments in real time
Mm.
instead of spending 4 hours trying to write a document,
Yeah, yeah.
talk a document, write the document, edit the document. It does my formatting. It does everything for me. And
Yeah.
guess what? Now we have like slide deck and slide share. So
Mhm.
now I can take training outlines and have them create a PowerPoint slide because there is nothing worse than having a dyslexic create a PowerPoint deck. It is freaking crazy. I'm like this. I have no idea what the deck says. Never
Yeah.
mind facilitator notes. AI is now taking that, right? They can
Yeah.
take my authority or thought leadership, and
Mhm.
now they can put it into formats that in the business world they can understand.
Yes. It
AI
helps
is
you
a
speak.
really
It's the
big
big
innovator.
translator. Yeah. That
It is the
yeah.
big
Yeah,
innovator.
super. I hadn't been making that connection. I mean, absolutely. I want to
Mm-hmm.
come back to, so we talked about the power of blue paper. We
Yeah.
talked about how easy it is to make some accommodations, yet how blind even an organization that is talking about it can be. So the level of awareness
Mhm.
of what things can be done is very low.
Yeah.
What what's going on? What's the conversation from your perspective to invite organizations to listen and to be curious and to take the time and care that needs to be made to be able to really pull this off well?
Mm. I think you just said right, time to care. Um, eh, when I came to this organization and I said I have dyslexia, I need Speechify. Right? I'm well versed in Speechify. It's an
Mhm.
app. It reads. It translates for me. It reads documents. It reads everything. Um, and I received my first barrier.
Mhm.
Um, that they were like, well, use Microsoft Narrator, and I'm like, Microsoft Narrator doesn't work for those of us that are dyslexic.
Mm.
It's very limited because all it does is read documents.
Mhm.
I need a translator, right?
Mhm.
And it's very cumbersome. And you have to hit 9 freaking buttons just to get it to read. Well, I can't find the buttons, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it got to a point where I just stopped working
Mhm.
because the organization was like, well, we're doing right. Like this is Lauran. It's a small problem. And we've got other things going on. And for the first time, because I hadn't had this problem before.
Mhm.
I was also right in other organizations. Everybody
Mhm.
else seemed to be fine.
Mhm.
But in this organization, and it was just a lack of awareness. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't malice. I get that. It's not malice.
Yeah.
It's lack of awareness.
Yeah.
I could take all of my documents from there and put it on my personal computer and continue to work, but I decided to put my foot down. And I was like, well, until you approve Speechify,
Mhm.
I'm not working
Mhm. Mhm.
because I can't be productive and I am not going to get frustrated because
Yeah.
you can't meet my accommodation. And according to the ADA, you have 15 days. Have a nice day.
So,
That's what I mean by that disruption, right? Like
yes. Yeah.
where I have it, where and I think, this speaks to everyone out there. If you have ADHD and you don't let your organization know, that's on you. If you don't start self-advocating, that's on you. Um, with the dyslexia, right? I share that I am dyslexic in every training class I do with my students. So that if anybody else out there has dyslexia or ADHD or reach out to me. I will help you find solutions if your manager hasn't found them for you.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. So there's that caring part, but it does come down to awareness. We need to be making more noise.
Mhm.
And
And I
we
think,
still
yeah, part of the challenge is people don't want to make noise is because there are terrible negative consequences in some organizations when you do say straight out. And there is no requirement to disclose your diagnosis, but you have to
nope.
talk about the specific challenges that you have. You have to be able to voice those. And I wonder, oh my gosh, so many questions, but maybe I wonder if you can think about how to encourage someone to speak up in a way that doesn't make them feel at risk, but gets their challenge out or highlights the barriers in front of them rather.
Yeah. So I became really an accommodation guru.
Hmm.
an accommodation voice. Today, the organization I work for, I don't worry about our employees anymore. It's now part of the onboarding conversation.
Thank you. Yes.
When they come into an organization, we discuss accommodations right out of the bat.
Yeah.
And you have someone with an accommodation run that course.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, like I'm dyslexic. This is how I got my accommodation. This is
Right.
the impact. And right.
Oh,
And
you've
so
normalized it from the
we've
get-go.
normalized it.
Yeah.
Then when they meet with their manager in the first 30 days, it has to be discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not right. It's not, hey, do you have a disability? It's so what do you need
Yes.
to to optimally perform? What do
Mm-hmm.
you need? And right, and in the talk tracks,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is it that you right? And it could be that you need breaks every 30 minutes, or it could be that you have a hard time reading the computer screen because low vision, or maybe you're dyslexic, maybe you're right. We can get that, right? We can solve that. We can get you these tools, or where's your mental health at? Do
Mm-hmm.
you need a mental health break?
Mm-hmm.
And then our managers ask it again at 90 days. Well,
Mm-hmm.
before the employee is considered to be kicked off, right? And
Yeah.
then it's an ongoing conversation.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
becomes part of the employee's profile.
Yes.
It
Yeah. And
becomes, right?
you've
Yeah.
said this is you've demonstrated that it's a safe place to have that conversation. But you said before this was a lack of awareness about,
Mhm.
dyslexia and your particular hurdles, if you will. I've run into tougher thinking, which is more of the mind that, oh no, we're taking care of the majority. We have to, taking care of 80% is fine. That's good enough. You're never going to please everybody. So just aim for 80%. I've heard that out of many mouths. And I ran into it. I wrote a blog, which is quite entertaining. I talk about how a watermark is a human rights issue. And I took a course a couple of years ago, and they
Mhm.
sent me the materials, and it had watermarks in 7 lines diagonally through all the material.
Mhm.
And the watermark was actually my email address. So it was like cognitively
Oh,
meaningful to
I
me,
yeah.
right? And they said, okay, well, we'll adjust it. And they put one thick line all the way through it. And I said, I can't, sorry, I paid over $1,000 for this course. And I said, I still can't process this. So the output of that was, well, we'll canvas the class. They canvassed the class. 19% of people said they would prefer without the watermark. And the decision was, that's not the majority, too bad for you.
That is illegal.
That's a human rights violation. I know.
That is
I know.
illegal. And you know what?
No.
Catering to 80%, would you only want 80% of your profits? If you're only going to cater to 80%, then give me the 20% profit margin.
Mm.
If that is truly your lens, we cater the majority. The majority are right, they're sheep. You have to cater to every single employee that comes through. Do you know how expensive it is to rehire
Mhm.
an employee?
That's
One
that's
and a
that's
half times their
yeah.
salary. And that's just entry level. At my level, it's
Right.
flipping expensive to
Yeah.
replace me.
So let's talk a little bit about this. Let's dig into this
Yeah, let's
aspect
begin.
of, well, it's, people want it to be fair. Well, it's not going to be fair. Well, I want it to be equitable. Well, that takes too much time and energy. So tell me about fairness and equity and the language and what should leaders be aiming for?
I love it. I love that you went here. I'm so excited. Because I'm working on a book on equity, which is why I'm excited. All
Yeah.
right, let's talk about the system of equity and the system of equality. Can they coincide together? No, and they shouldn't. Equity came about, or equality, excuse me, came about during the civil rights movement.
Mhm.
All man is created equal.
Mhm.
Bullshit. If all man was created equal, we wouldn't have disabilities.
Mhm.
Hmm. what has happened with equity, or the morph of equity, is equality has matured. The concept of equality has morphed into equity because we recognize that every individual is different. Every individual is different. You're different. I'm different. You can put two white Laurans next to each other. We're still different. There will be differences. So you can't give everyone the exact same thing.
So difference is there.
That's a waste of fun.
Maybe what the challenge is different and still worthy.
Different, still worthy.
Because I think it's people are ready to dismiss the 20%. And I'm like, you don't get to dismiss the 20%.
It's not 20%.
I know.
It's more like 60%. Hello. We are all different. I mean, it really, at the end of the day, it's 100%. There are no two of the same. So if you want to dismiss the 20%, you may as well dismiss the 100%.
Well, and this is something I want to get to is like let's just talk through, leaders, all the reasons why someone could have a good reason to stay at home for a day to work. Let's just list them all. And there are so many that you have to say, I'm going to permit anybody who needs to work from home on a day to work from home. You can't, you don't get to control and constrict and make some pretty box that everybody needs to climb and fit in anymore.
Everybody needs to climb in and fit in. Yeah. Equity is ensuring, and equity is one of the greatest cost savings in business.
Tell me more.
Give me an example. Let me tell you more about that. We're all on computers now. Imagine if an organization was required to give every employee blue reader glasses. That's what you need to get the job done.
Yeah.
Right. So from an equality lens, we're going to give it to everybody. Everybody gets blue reader glasses. If you have a computer, you get blue reader glasses. And let's say those glasses are $20 a pair. And you've got 50,000 employees. Ka-ching. Well, out of those 50,000 employees, what if 30,000 of them have a computer, but are only on that computer 10% of the time because they're sales, they're outside sales? Well, they're entitled to blue blocker glasses according to equality.
Yeah.
And let's look at human resources, and everybody in human resources is getting these glasses, but they may not be on the right. Maybe they're on the computer 30% of the time. Maybe there's specific written, let's give it to the lawyer who is never on his computer. Or let's give it to the trainers. They're not on their computers either. Right? There's all this. Wait, you could send me blue blocker glasses. You're not going to do nothing for me. So
now they're not going to block your blue paper, are they? That would be a disaster.
I'm like, they're not going to do anything for me. Because I have it all built into my computer screens. Oh, redundancy. Redundancy. What if you just sent blue blocker glasses to those that need them? Because at the end of the day, not everyone needs blue blocker glasses.
So is this a reluctance to deal with the complexity and the nuance of humanity as it really is?
I think it's right. We're in a very, these last 10 years, we're in a transformational business lens right now, right? Like how we do business is transformationally. But, however, we have a lot of organizations out there that are still doing business transactionally. Equality is transactional. Equity is transformational. So we have a lot of organizations that are still looking at their employees from that transaction lens. And that's costing them money. It's costing them a lot of money.
So they're not seeing that.
They're not seeing it. And it's, they're not seeing it. They're not used to seeing it. They're not used to doing it. So it's complacency. It's
Well, and
laziness.
this is where the speaking up part matters, right? I just had a call. I have to take a new medication, and I was on the call with the pharmaceutical company this morning, and
Mhm.
he's up beyond the. Let me confirm your name and your date of birth, and that this is going to be recorded. Is that all right with you? Okay, yeah, got it. Now I have to read you a consent notice of consent, and it's going to take 5 to 8 minutes. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I said, no, you don't. I'm not an auditory processor. Basically, I knew my blood would start boiling and then I would be the most annoyed person after that. And I was going to not listen. I said, and he said, oh, okay, we'll just send it to you then. But I would have been inflicted 8 minutes of listening to somebody read something out. They didn't want to read it out. I didn't want, or it would have been a recording. And we are not thinking about cognitive processing and how wildly different that it is. We're missing this. You know how you said it's part of onboarding? What do you need?
Mm.
It's part of every interaction. Is there anything that I need that I should be aware
I
of
need
to better serve you?
to
Right?
better serve you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. When I go out with my friends at night, right, girls' night. When I go out for girls' night, are we not accommodating to each other
Yeah.
naturally, honestly, right?
Mhm.
But yet you're telling me that in the workplace we don't want to be accommodating.
Mhm.
My girlfriends hang out with me because they think I'm funny and we have a good time, right?
Mhm.
There's no profit margin here.
Mhm.
But yet in the workplace, where there's a profit margin, where we're looking at engagement and productivity and retention, right? The stakes are higher in the workplace to understand who you've got in front of you.
Yes. Yeah.
But yet we're ignoring it. And we're ignoring it because of lack of awareness. We're ignoring it because of laziness, because of complacency. And we are.
And I think
We're
it's that value piece. I think we're not inherently raised to value everyone. We're not
no,
inherently. We're raised in our culture in North America, old people, we can kind of discard them. You have a shelf life. We
you
can
have a shelf.
discard people that are not,
Yep.
intellectually as vibrant as somebody else, right? So we are in a culture which discards people, perhaps not as dramatically as other cultures before and in different places, but we do
I
in our
don't know.
culture.
We do in our culture.
We do. And
We do.
I think that is at the crux of people not then bringing attention to how do we
Mhm.
value everyone? What are we missing here? How are we uncovering it? I talked to Rajesh Anandan from Ultranauts,
Mhm.
and it's an organization, MIT engineers started it.
Yeah.
They have a
Yeah.
high percentage of neurodivergent employees, and they
Absolutely.
recognize the value. Therefore, they are thinking about the biodex, which is like the work style profile, which is a way to understand each other. But until
Oh,
you value it, you are not going to
yes.
make the time. You're not going to. So,
You're not going to. Yeah.
yeah.
It's the business case, which cracks me up. I'm like, wait, so what it all boils down to in the workplace is I have to show. So if I'm working with an organization and
Mhm,
we're working on the accommodations, which
mhm,
I do quite frequently,
mhm,
I have to show them the business case.
mhm.
The business case of being transformational, being a inclusive transformational leader
Yeah.
versus not.
Yeah.
And it's not until they see the dollar and cents that they go, oh crap, we should be, and I love it because then I get we should be asking every employee this. And I'm like, lead them to water, push their head in, let them drink.
Yeah.
Like, yes, right. But humans shouldn't be a business case. So I think you're onto something there. There's this devaluation and let's right. That's called systemic racism. You know, it in North America, that is still there. And people want to put their head in the sand and be like, we don't have systemic racism. We most certainly do, or we wouldn't have
That
the
is,
highest mortality rates for childbirth.
this is absolutely the 80%. I only want
Mhm.
to look at 80%. Oh, so you want to be systemically exclusive.
Any, I'm going to say it. Anyone that truly has that lens
Mhm.
of looking at 80, they're a moron. They don't understand. the human dynamic. They don't, they are a cost for their organization. If I had a leader say that to me, I would fire them. End of the story. Like, because you're going to cost this organization money.
How would you change that person's mind and invite them to start to be able to value more people?
And that's having open and honest conversations. I've had leaders who right? I've had leaders who are like, yeah, I can't treat everyone. I can't do this. Right.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's that you're not valuing your employee. And then I always share with photos my story of being mentally retarded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Today, I hold my PhD. I'm the only one in the United States, the only one to graduate with a PhD in industrial organizational psychology with a specialization and concentration in diversity, equity, inclusion, and change leadership. Only one.
Wow.
Now, if you don't value me at an organization, I'm going to take my ball and go elsewhere. But trust me, when you look at the credentials that I have, they're like, "Oh, don't go anywhere. We want you." Like,
Mm.
then
Yeah.
if you can value me, then you should be valuing your employees.
Yeah.
It's having those conversations. It's talking raw data. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is what it's going to cost
Mm-hmm.
your department if you don't do this.
Yeah.
Retention is expensive. Rehiring those roles are expensive.
Yeah.
Let's sit down and show. If you have an employee who's making $150,000 a year, to replace them, it's going to be 2 times their salary. So just to replace them is a
Mm-hmm.
loss of $300,000.
Mm-hmm.
You got that in your budget, then you don't need to value anyone.
Well, and
So
I
that's
wonder if some organizations do. I wonder if some organizations do. They're going to treat humans as commodities, and therefore we're understanding that. I mean, the return to office as an attrition strategy, I think, was definitely a play last year, and so
Mhm.
there are definitely organizations. I think they underestimate the cost, though.
Yeah, and again, right there, their approach, that return to workplace. Where's that coming from? Where's the evidence that we should return? That's where being a disruptor, that's where I can lean in as a disruptor
Mm-hmm.
and say, hey, this is what it's going to cost the organization to return to office. And this is the research that backs that up.
Yeah.
And right, we know when you bring employees back to the office, productivity decreases 37%
Mm.
right out of the gate. Never mind, right, your capital expenses for the place, the electricity, yeah. And then motivation goes down. Like,
Yeah.
maybe it takes an employee an hour to get into work and an hour to get home. That's now 2 hours. Who pays for that? Do you have to pay for that? Yeah, you do. You do, because the employee is going to start looking for another company that's going to that's either 30 minutes closer or is going to let them be
Exactly.
hybrid or remote. And
Exactly.
now
They're going to
it's going to
better their
cost
conditions. So you put the writing on the wall. Start
you
looking for
gotta
something else.
you
Yeah.
gotta start
Yeah.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
because you can't look at the data and then critically, utilizing critical thinking, make the decision that everybody should return to office. Now, granted, there are some jobs out there that you have to be in office.
100%.
I get that, right? Your doctor. Nobody wants to do a breast exam on me virtually. It's just not going to work.
Yeah.
I'm a breast cancer survivor. So, right, that virtual, no, my doctors have to be in office. Okay. Their receptionists, right, the scheduler and whatnot, they have to be in the office, but their HR department doesn't because they
Yeah,
don't
there's a
interview
whole that's
with clients.
definitely a whole discussion, but
Yeah.
I want to end on one note. And when I read your LinkedIn profile, I thought, "Oh, this is really good. Tell me about your formula."
My formula.
Your
So
formula. Hmm.
so I have a book out right now called Evidence-Based Inclusion. It's time to focus on the right needle. We launched that book in 2021, 2022. And doing the research, it became very apparent that inclusion plus accommodations equals diversity over equity. Meaning, when you have inclusion and accommodations in play, you're going to get diversity and equity. They go hand in hand.
Yeah. I read it as inclusivity plus accessibility equals.
Oh, what did I say? Accommodations.
You said accommodations.
Yeah,
but do you mean accessibility? You mean
I
accessibility?
mean accessibility.
Do you? Yeah. Because that's my preferred term for it. Is let's take the barriers down rather than thinking the more barriers are down, we need accommodations will be in the minority of, we didn't think of that, right? So yeah, I believe this too.
Yeah.
Plus accessibility equals the diversity and the
over equity.
Exactly.
And it just does. The research supports that.
Yeah.
Research.
I thought that was a profound observation when we're looking at DEI and we're looking at a lot of pushback, and you're saying focus over here. Because this is what matters. Inclusion and accessibility, that matters, and it's a business decision. It's not just the right thing to do. It is also a smart business decision.
Yes. And then like I said, my next work is inclusion plus accessibility equals equity. Mm-hmm. And I have the data that supports that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't wait. I can't wait to read it. Let me know. Maybe we'll have to have a whole other conversation diving into that. But thank you very much for this conversation. I love the straight talk. I love the disruption that you stepped into. I'm thrilled to know you, Lauran Star, and thrilled for everyone. Yeah, I'm thrilled for everyone listening. Please let people know where they should look you up, where they should follow your work.
Yeah, you can just go right to my website, which is Dr. Lauran Star. So it's Lauran, Lauran, S like Sally, T like Tom, AR. Perfect. You can put either Lauran Star in or Dr. Lauran Star. You'll end up,
Yeah, there's not too many Laurans out there. I love it.
There's only 6 of us.
Is it? All right.
Yeah, I think just Social Security, and I was like, how many Laurans are there? 6. But yes, so if you want more information, if you want to reach out to me, don't hesitate to reach out. And I think that we're all in this together. Mm-hmm. All of us are in this. And if we're going to make equitable solutions, we all have to be part of that solution. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying this is someone else's problem.
That's right.
Right. Accessibility is someone else's problem. No, it's not. Accessibility is everyone's problem.
A shared opportunity.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Lauran.
My pleasure.
Thanks so much for spending time here. Check out happyspacepod.com for links to all the episodes, including on YouTube, our online community, and helpful tools for work that fits. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment on social media, or even better, drop a review. And please share with someone else who you know also deserves a happy space.